What is communicative language teaching? It is also known as the communicative approach that emphasizes interaction as both the means and the ultimate goal of study. Learn and practice the target language by interactions with one another and also the instructor. The goal of language education is the ability to communicate in the target language. It focuses more on the teacher being facilitator rather than instructor. Works on developing sound, oral, and verbal skills prior to reading and writing. But first, let's get to the underlying theory. There are 4 underlying theories, which are theory of language, on communicative competence, discourse analysis, and also social-linguistic consideration.
Let's start with the first one, which is theory of language. So, assumptions in communicative language teaching are that language is social behavior which concerns conveyance of meaning. For example, the grammar of a language is a means of organizing meaning, which means that language is about making text, connected discourse, which is not sentences in isolation. And knowing a language means knowing the grammatical rules and knowing the rules and conventions of the speech community, which is language is not seen as comprised of 4 skills, which are reading, writing, speaking, and also listening, but of various abilities. The next one is on communicative competence. So, communicative competence is the core of communicative approach, and taken very broadly, communicative competence is the ability to interact well with others, or it is as said by Trenholm and Jensen in 1988, the ability to communicate in a personally effective and socially appropriate manner. To add on that, an analysis of communicative competence is found in Cannell and Swain in 1980 that the communicative competence is made up of 4 major strands, which is the first one is grammatical competence, sociolinguistic competence, discourse competence, and the last one is strategic competence. The next one is discourse analysis. So what is discourse analysis? It is basically the study of social life, which is understood through analysis of language in its widest sense, including face-to-face talk, nonverbal interaction, images, symbols, and also documents. It offers ways of investigating meaning, whether in conversation or in culture. Actually, the works in discourse analysis are directly relevant to language teaching. An influential linguist, which is called Holliday, is concerned with the way in which linguistics may help the sociologist in his search for explanation of social phenomena. He says if we consider language in relation to the context within which it is used, so we shall certainly learn something about the way language operates as a system. The final underlying theory of communicative language teaching is the sociolinguistic consideration. So, since a speech, act, a communication takes place in definite but varied sociolinguistic situations, both linguistic and extra-linguistic factors have been taken into consideration. So the approach takes cognizance of the fact that the social roles and psychological attitudes of the participants toward each other in a conversation, for example, between employer and employee, or teachers and pupils, or even doctors and patients, or maybe parents and also their children, for example. So the place and time of the communication act and the activity or topic being discussed will determine to a large extent the form, tone, and appropriateness of any oral or written messages. Next, let's move on to the principle of the communicative language teaching. So, in the communicative language teaching approach, meaning is given prime importance. The main focus of this approach is to make the learners able to understand the intention and expression of the writers and also the speakers. So, in this approach, it is believed that communicative functions are more important rather than linguistic structures. We need to know that each language has a limited number of sentence patterns, so mastering only those sentence patterns does not help the learners to communicate in the target language. The learners need to learn the communication functions of those structures. Next, while using the communicative language teaching approach in teaching language, the target language is used in the classroom. So the target language is a vehicle for the classroom communication and not just the object of the study. Because if the learners continue to use their native languages, they would not be able to communicate in the target language. And it is believed that native language should be used judiciously. This is a very important point. So, appropriate use of language is emphasized rather than accuracy, because accuracy will come at the later stage. It is believed that when the learners learn to use the language appropriately, accuracy will definitely come automatically. In addition, language should be taught by integrating all language skills and not by only one skill. It means communication approach is not limited to only speaking skill, but reading and writing skills should also be developed. Please note that language cannot be learned through rote memorization. So what is rote memorization? Rote memorization describes storing of information in long-term memory through sheer repetition. And it cannot be learned in isolation because it should be learned through social interaction. In order to communicate in target language, there is a need to struggle with language. As what was stated by Richards and Rogers, the target linguistic system will be learned best through the process of struggling to communicate. Next, while using this approach, the major focus is to make the learner able to communicate in the target language. So errors are tolerated by the teacher because what is more important is to make them able to speak in the target language. And it is important for the teachers to not correct them during the activities in which they are using the target language. But however, the teacher can note the errors of the learner and make it correct after the activities are over. To add on that, the teachers should create situations which would help to promote communication. The teacher should teach them how language should be used in a social context. For example, teachers should give activities such as role plays or opinion sharing, which would help the learners to learn the language in a social context, which means that there should be a two-way communication happening in the activities conducted. Last but not least, language teaching techniques should be designed in such a way that it encourages the learners to use the target language. Functional aspect of language should be given importance. For example, dramas, role plays, games should be used in the classroom to promote real communication.
Thank you, Yasmin. Now I'll be presenting on characteristic and advantages of communicative language teaching. So, the major focus while using the communicative language teaching is on the learners. It is learner-centered that mainly focuses on learning the language through communication. The teacher is just a facilitator and a person who manages the environment and helps the learners to become autonomous. Next, it aims to make learners attain communicative competence so the learners can use language accurately and appropriately. It focuses on the use of techniques which encourage learners in participating in the natural environment. It gives the importance of the necessity of the learners and attempts to explain it. Then, the syllabus emphasizes the functional use of language. The syllabus is relying on the authentic materials. The tasks which are assigned to the learners have purposes and meanings. Communicative language teaching emphasizes to engage the learners in real-life situations in the classroom so that they understand how to communicate in real life. Besides, communicative activities enable the learners to attain communicative objectives of the curriculum engage learners in communication, and require the use of such communicative processes as information sharing, negotiation of meaning, and interaction. Now, we move to the advantages of communicative language teaching approach. Firstly, this approach tends to be a student-centered and situation-oriented language teaching practice. Within the situation practice, teachers tend to develop some related activities within student living communities. The situational practices in speaking may not have a strong focus on grammar and sentence translation accuracy. However, it may increase the understanding and knowledge of language use and communication abilities. Secondly, the interaction between teachers, students, and peers. For this approach, the relationship between both peers and teachers are significantly increased and highly considered, and it allows both teachers and students to transfer their traditional teaching and learning belief into an innovative teaching and learning approach. Thirdly, this approach usually increases the overall teaching and learning interest of students. When students are allowed to participate in some real-life stories and exercises, this could help develop the interest of the students beyond the classroom environment. In other words, students become the protagonists instead of being the audiences. Lastly, students acquire grammar rules as a necessity to speak, so they become more proficient and efficient. So that's all from me, and we'll continue with Warda.
Thank you, Eka Malia. Next, I'll be presenting on the roles of teacher. First, role of the teacher is to be facilitator of his students' learning. Teacher is charged with the responsibility of establishing situations likely to promote communication. Teacher also have to act as an independent participant within the learning teaching group. Other roles assumed for teachers are needs analyst, counselor, and also a group process manager. The teacher now is seen as a guide on the side. He intervenes only when students are facing some difficulties with either the content or the design of classroom activities. Instead of being the correct model of the target language and having a negative attitude towards the learner's erroneous output, the teacher now has to develop positive tendency towards the errors. The teacher can rely on these errors to determine the learner's level and design appropriate communicative activities accordingly. Moving on to the roles of learner. The emphasis in communicative language teaching on the process of communication rather than mastery of the language. Learner's role changes from that of a passive receiver to an active participant engaging in diverse classroom activities that promote communicative competence. Third, learners also actively participate in various classroom events such as group work. The role of learner as negotiator between the self, the learning process, and also the project of learning. It emerged from and interacts with the role of joint negotiator within the group and within the classroom procedures and activities which the group undertakes. The implication for the learner is that he should contribute as much as he gains and thereby learn in an independent way.
Example of methods for communicative language teaching. What is opinion sharing? Opinion sharing is a content-based activity whose purpose is to engage students' conversational skills while talking about something they care about. Example, first, the instructor introduces a topic and asks students to contemplate their opinions about it. Example of topic, pros and cons of online learning. Next, the students talk in pairs or small groups, debating their opinion regarding the small topics. Opinion sharing is a great way to get more introverted students to open up and share their opinions. If a student has a strong opinion about a certain topic, Then they will speak up and share. Respect is the key with this activity. If a student does not feel like their opinions is respected by the instructor or their peers, then they will not feel comfortable sharing and they will not receive the communicative benefits of this study.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. How is everyone doing this morning?
I'm good,
Good,
teacher.
teacher.
Good. I'm glad to hear that everyone is doing great. So, shall we start our lesson for today?
Sure.
Yes.
Good. I like the spirit. So, as we already know, this pandemic has caused us to stay at home and conduct our learning virtually, just like how we are doing right now. So I believe that online learning has its own pros and cons. So for today's activity, I would like and love to hear you all talk about this issue, which is online learning, and share your opinions to the class, just like what I have always said during our class before. So I would like you all to be comfortable while sharing your thoughts and no need to be afraid of possibility of making mistakes. Remember that every opinion is valid, alright? So is everyone ready to start?
Yes, teacher.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Who would like to go first and share their thoughts?
Me.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Go, Ika.
Okay. I would like to start with the pros of online learning. So, based on my experience for the past few months, I think that this online learning allows students to attend classes from any location of their choice. It also allows schools to reach out to more extensive network of students instead of being restricted by geographical boundaries. Additionally, online lectures can be recorded, archived, and shared for future reference. So this allows students to access the learning material at a time of their comfort. Thus, online learning offers students the accessibility of time and place in education. And next, it improves student attendance since online classes can be taken from home or any location. There is fewer chances of students missing out on lectures.
Teacher, may I add some more?
Yes, you may add to that.
Okay, so I think most importantly, online learning suits a variety of learning style. Every student have a different learning journey and a different learning styles. Some student is visual learners, while some student prefer to learn through audio. And similarly, some students thrive in the classroom and other student is solo learners who get distracted by large groups. The online learning system, with it is it is the best way to create a perfect learning environment suited to the needs of each student. That's what I think.
Good. Well done, Eka and Yas. So, anyone want to add anything or that share your own other opinions to the others?
Mm, me, teacher,
Okay,
uh,
you may
uh,
proceed.
I I would also like to touch regarding the cons of online learning this time. So for many students, one of the biggest challenge of online learning is the struggle with focusing on the screen for long periods of time. With online learning, there are also a greater chance for students to be easily distracted by social media or other sites. So therefore, it is imperative for the teachers to keep their online classes crisp engage, engaging, and interactive to help students to stay focused on internet connection. While internet penetration has grown in leaps and bounds over the past few years in similar city and town, a consistent connection with decent speed is a problem. So without a consistent internet connectivity for students or teacher, there can be a lack of continuity in learning for the child.
Oh, yes, I agree with Yasmin's opinion because I may say that the main challenge among all is gadget issues because not all students were born with silver spoons. Some have to share the gadgets with other siblings because the parents cannot afford to provide all of their children gadgets as the parents also struggling financially. And apart from that, there is also students who also use outdated gadgets, which the gadgets cannot cope with the platform or application that the teachers are using.
So, very good, everyone. I'm so happy to know that each of you actually do keep those kinds of things in mind and are aware of your surroundings. So, while listening to you all sharing opinions with each other, I would like to say that I also agree with most of your points regarding the online learning pros and cons. You both did great, but I would like to point out some aspects that can be improved and fixed. So actually, I do took some notes that when some of you speak, you tend to care less about grammatical structures. So in learning a language, it is true that fluency should be focused more instead of accuracy. But I would like you guys to take note that we should always try to improve the mistakes little by little, because if we care way too little in these aspects, I'm afraid that it will come out as a habit that will be hard to fix later on. So shall we look to our my notes? Wait,
Okay, teacher.
I will share screen. Okay, so can you see my screen now?
Yes, teacher, we can
Yes.
see.
Okay, so you guys tend to make mistake at the grammatical structures. For example, I has. Instead of I have, the use of is and are and other singular and plural nouns, where I found you tend to get confused a lot in your speech. So now let me ask you, which is correct between I has and I have?
I have.
I have.
Good job. That's correct. It should be I have. So, although I means one person, it is a special case, which adding as in verbs like other singular nouns, it doesn't work with I.
Oh,
Um, Next, I also want to share, it should be like I have, I go, I sing, and many more. Do you get me?
Yes, teacher.
yes, it must
Great.
use plural, right?
Yes. Let's look at this point. Is for
Singular.
singular. R is for
Plural.
Plural.
plural. Great. I think you can definitely manage this with many more practices. It is fine to go slow, but remember to make sure that there are improvements every time. Any question to clear out your confusion before we end today's session?
It's quite confusing, but I think so far everything is good, teacher.
Good. Eka?
I have some question to ask, but may I text you later personally?
Oh, sure. You may do that. Anything else?
No, teacher.
No.
Fantastic. I hope you all had fun today, and let's do another opinion sharing session next time. That's all for today's class. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
teacher.
you, teacher.
Have a nice
Assalamualaikum.
day.
Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam.